Welcome to Business on Purpose, the podcast for hardworking entrepreneurs who drive our economy. I'm your host, Barry Barrett, and as a sales leader and business owner, I understand the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. Each episode, I am interviewing business owners who have faced the same struggles you have. Low revenue, a lack of scalability in their sales force. Together, we're going to explore their entrepreneurial journey and uncover the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. From mentors to advice, we'll dive deep into what has helped these business owners get unstuck and move forward towards success. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned entrepreneur, the podcast is for you. Be sure and follow and subscribe to this podcast as we learn from the experiences of successful business owners and navigate the road to entrepreneurship together. Let's get started. Welcome, Jeremy Bates with Bates Security here in Lexington, Kentucky. One of my favorite people now. And I say that quite a bit because all I do is I interview the best entrepreneurs that I know. And Jeremy is one of the best leaders, and he's going to get embarrassed here, and I'm okay with that. But the reason his company works so well is their core values. And I don't know if that's going to be the topic today, but I've rarely met a company and an organization, and they are a family business, multi-generation, that lives their core values the way that Bates Security does. And I don't just here to pump up his tires, but if it wasn't true, I wouldn't say it. Welcome, Jeremy Bates. How are you today?
Thank you, Barry. I am super fantastic today.
I love it.
How are you doing?
I am doing well. Let's dive right in, Jeremy. How did you get your start in your entrepreneurial journey?
First, thinking of this question, I was just thinking of the perspective of being in our security business, but it hit me on the drive in. You know what? Probably part of my initial entrepreneurial experience was I was in band through middle school and high school, and you got to do fundraisers. And so I literally went door-to-door sales by myself, no parents standing behind me, pitching whatever it was I was selling. I think it was grapefruit, and that seems like a hard sell if you ask me.
Yeah.
I'm not a grapefruit fan, but I don't know what I was selling, but I sold enough and it was good. But so that was probably my first experience. But my brother and I are second generation family business operators and owners, and we've taken the business over from our parents. But you can say that we were born into the business. I think I was 9 or 10 when mom and dad got into it. And my first job was working on the weekends, helping clean the offices. And then my brother's was too. And over the years between us, we have done pretty much every single job in the company other than the accounting jobs. We're just not smart enough to be crunching numbers like that. But
yeah, I resemble that remark.
Yes, we can sell it and we can run it. But yeah, we need smart people to do the numbers. So we did that, but Bryan and I both worked through middle school. Bryan Bates, my brother, business partner. So we worked through middle school, high school, and through college, full-time during the summer and part-time when college was in session. But so that was really our first experience as a entrepreneur.
Yeah. So you had mentioned sales and operations. You've done sales, you've done operations.
Yep.
Which one of those skill sets would you say most important for entrepreneurs in the beginning to be really great at operations or really great at sales?
All of the above.
Yeah.
What comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's as we have grown up as a company, we are trying to be much more disciplined and realize that operations is very important part of the company. But I think everyone in my family comes from a sales background. And so we are used to going and selling it and then figuring out how to do it after the fact. So we've become much more disciplined than we have in the past. But gosh, if I was starting a business, sales is just so important. And I think there's, in that respect, maybe there's two different types of salespeople. There's people that are classically trained, like my brother is today. He's such a good salesperson. And then there's when I remember selling against a competitor, he wasn't trained as much as I was on sales, but he was the owner of the business. He could speak with authority. He was a former technician, and he was a challenge to sell against. And he knew how to run the company, and he could sell with authority. You needed both, unless you had to just have all kinds of startup money and you can afford a big operation to stand behind you.
Yeah, that's great. The technician that can sell is a unicorn, and the salesperson who can be a technician would be a unicorn. They're
Oh,
rarely in the
absolutely.
same body.
Yeah, it's funny enough. My brother actually was a full-blown technician before he actually finally went into sales, and sales was his true calling. But they do happen. And actually, one of our number one salesperson for several years now was a full-time technician. And when I hired him, I remember when we hired him, I kept thinking, "You just need to go straight into sales." He's, "Oh no, I can't afford that. I've got to be a technician." So he was a heck of a technician, but we finally, luckily, got him to switch.
Yeah, that's good. Tell people where your business is today versus when your dad ran it or your parents ran it. What's the difference?
My parents started this business in 1984. It actually got started in 1969, and they bought it in 84. And when they bought it in 1984, it was about 331 customers, I believe is what the number was.
Hmm.
So we're now around 16,000 customers today. They were at one office. We are now in five different offices in two different states, five distinct geographical different areas. So we have grown the company to be the part of the SDM 100, top 100 largest security companies in the nation. And today we rank at number 34. So it has come a long way since 1984 when my parents bought that company. And we're not done yet, Barry. We're continuing to grow.
I love it. I've gotten to know some people in your business as far as the security business because you are really good at getting me in contact with a lot of people. And I've
Sure.
realized how much influence Bates Security has in that industry.
Yeah.
And did you see your dad begin that and then you continued it? Or was your dad more heads down looking for his thing and then you started to branch out into the community? Where did that start?
I think it's important to say that mom and dad provided the foundation for who we are today.
Yeah.
And this is not something that certainly that was not done by just mom or dad or Jeremy and Brian. It has taken a team, right?
Mhm.
So it's our last name that's on the name of the company. And we're driving the business day in, day out, but it has taken a great team that we have, been fortunate to surround ourselves with. But yeah, mom and dad, so they provided the foundation. Dad got us involved with one of our peer networking groups and really laid the foundation. And I particularly enjoy the side of the business of getting out and networking and being involved with others, going to different conferences and being a sponge for information. Does that answer your question? So we definitely try to get out there and build our reputation because that helps with the acquisition side of our business, obviously. And it allows us to really learn from others that are doing well in the industry.
Yeah, it did answer my question. And the reason is because we started an automotive repair business here in Lexington and it's the infancy stage, but I know that for a very long time we're heads down and that
Oh,
we don't
yeah.
have time to be talking to other people or learning. And then all of a sudden now we've got a place where our family is in there. And what he just said, I want you to listen to it. I said, your parents, you, and then his core values, he lives them, goes back to the people in his organization and not just him. And I can tell you he lives that. He just doesn't talk that.
Yeah.
But your business has made me think about our family business in which way we have the people who started it or whatever. And then now we've got the next generation. My nephew is working in the business. And how are they going to use what I look at as your and Brian's model to get what they want from their business and to scale and, like you said, make acquisitions. And it's exciting to see
Right.
in 20 years what it could look like just by looking at your business. And I think it's funny that I'm supposed to be helping coach your business, but I'm learning so much from your business. So I appreciate that. You're a good mentor for me, and I don't even think you know that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to learn from others. And I remember my dad definitely was heads down, and he jokes about things that he did that mom would get really mad about on money he spent that he knew he had to spend on like a central station receiver to take us to the next level. And back then it cost $5,000 and that was the world to them. And I remember I didn't beg, but just really wanting to go to certain conferences. And he's like trying to bring me back, and we can't afford to go do all this travel, blah, blah, blah. But it was a great way to learn. And we may bring things to the table that people can learn from us, but we're going to take far more from others and learn from them. And one person that we talk to a lot is John Loud of Loud Security in Atlanta. Love his last name for a business. but he talks about R&D, and that's a rip off and duplicate, and in a nice way, and
Yeah,
in a professional way, if you would. But
absolutely.
yeah, learning from others is so important.
Yeah, Pablo Picasso said that good painters borrow and great painters steal. And so you
Yeah.
should steal like an artist. So
Uh-huh.
tell me the similarities and the differences between you two that makes that combination work so well.
We both have our strengths and weaknesses, but I'm very fortunate to have my brother as my business partner. And obviously, my mom and dad are our business partners as well, but they're retired. But Bryan and I have really developed really well into a good, strong working relationship over the last several years. And I think we've always had a good working relationship. But when its first real strong evolution was many years ago. Dad was starting to step out of the business day to day. And I was the sales manager at the time, and Bryan was one of our sales reps. And we went to Dad and said, "Hey, we need somebody here day in, day out that can make decisions to get things done." And so at that time, I became the operations manager. I was our first operations manager, other than Dad. And then Bryan became our sales manager. And we effectively split the business where he was responsible for the growth of the business, and I was responsible for the operations side of the business, the getting things installed, serviced. We actually had a monitoring station, central monitoring station at the time. And what was interesting is, so I came from a sales background. And then my brother, before he went into sales, I mentioned earlier, he came from an operations background. So he was a full-blown technician at one point. He was actually our installation manager at one point. So we cross paths, right? And from then on out, I've always paid attention to sales, but once my brother really took the reins of sales, it was very nice. I didn't have to worry about that side of business, and he didn't have to worry about the operations. Obviously, we worked together. We influenced each other's decisions and what have you. But that really allowed us to start pressing the gas pedal and growing much more aggressively.
Yeah.
So over the years, part of our history is that he wanted to have the challenge of starting something from scratch, so to speak, like mom and dad did. And he's the reason that we ended up having a business presence in Florida, where he started the Jacksonville office from scratch.
Yeah.
And then he moved back 4 or 5 years later after getting that up and running successfully. And especially with EOS and the things that we've learned there and the discipline and what have you, our working relationship today is stronger than ever before. And as you know, it's been evolving now to where, so I sit in the integrator seat currently. And what did we joke? I'm an integrator in a visionary's body, but we let my brother take the visionary role. And it's evolving. So anyway, we've had a great working relationship. I don't like how people try to say, you stay out of each other's lane, but we both have good areas of responsibility where we don't get in each other's way to complement each other. And then, of course, and I'll say it time and again, is we've surrounded ourselves with an awesome leadership team, and then our team under our middle managers, and then our frontline people by living our core values, which you helped us understand them more clearly than ever before. I think we were living them before we met you, but
you were.
You helped us bring it to the forefront. So in essence, I think my brother and I have a great work relationship, and we complement each other well. And we've surrounded ourselves with a team that we all complement each other.
Yeah, I know you were living them before. EOS helps people clarify what already exists in their organization. And you guys now have words to put to those core values, but I knew you lived them as soon as I showed up, and the way things were going with your conversation with your leadership teams. Most of the time I walk in and the owner's talking 80% of the time and everybody else is talking 20. And when I walk in with you, it's more like 60% them, maybe 40% you guys, because there's two of you. And so it was a really good mix of leadership conversation already. And I knew that my job was going to be much easier because of that one piece. Bigger, stronger, faster is pretty simple when you have healthy, and you guys were already healthy, and I appreciate that
Thanks.
a huge amount. So you talked about Bryan now as the visionary, and he's changing from the seat from the salesperson,
Right.
and you're the integrator. And I know before it was really reversed. You're the older brother. I've got an
Right.
older brother. I'm more like Bryan than I'm
Yeah.
like you, and my older brother's more like you. You guys are the authoritarians, the bosses, and then now this new seat. What are the challenges, and also what is exciting about the new seat changes?
Yeah, we are still in the middle of it. So his
Yeah.
role. So technically, he's the vice president of the company,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the VP of sales. And as I mentioned earlier, he was just in charge of sales, making it happen. And I didn't have to worry too much about it. But he and I and our team have bigger aspirations to achieve more. And our passion statement is building a great company while enabling personal success. So we've built a great company, but we need to continue to build it. So we realized that Bryan and I can get in the way of getting things done because our capacity is only so much. It's increased with EOS, but with Bryan, he had other things going on than just sales. And so we had the opportunity to promote a young man by the name of Danny Goodpasture to become our VP of sales, whose 100% sole focus is nothing but building our sales organization like it's never been before. And he's got the benefit, or we have the benefit, of having my brother to help guide him. And then with that, we didn't put anybody in the visionary seat. We collectively said Jeremy, Bryan, and Dad were the visionaries for the company. But we finally got comfortable where we can make Bryan that visionary seat. And so he's not completely really running with it 100% yet because he's still in that transition mode with Danny. But we've got some good plans there. But he definitely has shed any direct report roles quickly. I guess technically I'm his direct report now on the
Yeah.
accountability chart. But he's helping lead with the sales and focused on the sales and then some other special projects. And then once we get past that stage, who knows what that man's going to dream up, because he is a true visionary. I know I have visionary tendencies, but he is a true visionary, and he's going to. And sometimes I walk into his office just to say hello in the morning. 20 minutes later, I leave his office so frustrated. We've talked about so many different things, and I need to put on my integrator hat and just say, Bryan, calm down. I just want to say good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're going to keep him between the lines, but not too much. We're going to let him bump up against guardrails, and then
Yep.
and then you can bump up against them, but we're not going to run off of them.
Oh,
That's good. I love that. That's clarity. And I
yeah.
also love that and I want everybody to hear what he just said. Early on, we had a lot of people that had visions and they have ideas, but we kept it very simple and just didn't have a visionary seat.
Yep.
And then later we walked through it and added that visionary seat. And that is called not having ego and making sure that we have the right structure and then putting the right people. And then now down the line, if you were listening really close, Jeremy is an integrator in a visionary's body. That's how we say it. And then down the road on the issues list, we get to find a great integrator and put Jeremy where he's going to be the highest and best value for the company. So what you're hearing is they do a really good job of just listening and following a proven system and say, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to trust it for a while. It's a little bit scary, which leads me to my next thing. Your next level is to get a executive assistant. Tell me about where you're stuck there. What is the excitement?
Yeah. It is. So what I was thinking of while you were saying those things is maybe how many times have you told us we got to go slow to get fast? And it's become a mantra within our company. And it's so great that EOS has taught us a common language, and it's neat seeing our entire organization develop a common language. I know somebody that really is a student disciple of Good to Great, Jim Collins, and that was one of his talking points at a conference I was at, having a common language. But anyway, on the administrative assistant, so we've never had an assistant. Who are we to need an assistant? So we're not worthy. But again, Bryan and I realized that we can really hold things back if we're not careful. And my email inbox fills up, and I've got other stuff that are people want to do. And it's not because either one of us are goofing off or taking too much time off, or exactly the opposite, right? EOS has created so much bandwidth, we keep trying to shove more things into that. So we actually have hired a young lady, and she started Monday. And funny enough, we had an issue pop up in our branch in Jacksonville, and I had to. So I'm not there. I wasn't there yesterday when she started. I'm down in Florida,
Right.
but we've got a team back up there. We've got a full day onboarding process, and she's getting started. But we hope that she can really increase our capacity so we can focus on the bigger picture things. She can do the stuff that she likes to do, like booking travel and helping document different things, and just the ministerial stuff that we need to do, but it doesn't get done by Bryan and I. So
Yeah.
we hope that she is really going to enable us to take things to the next level.
Yeah, earlier, my favorite question, we had a call the other day, and you said, when you land on a plane, what do you do? And I go, because if you're not doing emails and you're not following up, and I said, I just text my wife that I landed, and then when I walk off the plane, I call her, and you're like, what? Like it was a foreign language. And I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, when you have people that just to handle that stuff and you're a slave to your inbox, and that I think that resonated with you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you're basically a lot of times majoring in minor things.
Interesting. Yeah.
And when you're looking at day to day, and I look at the size of your company, and you're one of, and you'll fight me on this, but you're one of the major reasons that company is able to be that size. You're all of a sudden doing work that really is holding your company back from growing even more.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a little scary for people. So
Oh,
now
yeah.
tell me, you get all this delegated. Where are you headed now as Bates Security?
So where are we headed? Yeah, when I land the plane, or not when I land the plane, when we land, the first thing I do is you open the phone and the email, you check your email, right? That's what I do now.
Yeah.
And I used to get so much anxiety about that too. So somehow I got to let it go.
Yeah.
So where are we headed? I think probably what we want to do is possibly get me out of my seat at some point and actually hire a true professional that is good at being an integrator. Not that I'm bad. We are not micromanagers by any means. We like to get things going and then just assume that it's all working well. And so I don't necessarily follow up like I should. I've got to make myself follow up. And hopefully the administrative assistant, she's going to help me do a better job at my follow up.
Yeah.
Accountability, part of my job. Barry, we are focused on growing the company. We are putting more resources into our sales organization than we ever have before by developing, Danny with our VP of sales and having every single one of our sales seats occupied by the right person, right seat. And currently we have just one seat that's not filled. And hopefully every single one of those people will work out. But then when we're budgeting for next year, I want to, where can we add more seats? And we're growing this inside sales group concept that we've started, an idea that we borrowed from another company. And that's proving successful. So we expect to see good, strong, organic growth internally. And then hopefully we'll find some right acquisitions, and that would hopefully take us into a sixth location or seventh, or who knows where we go from there. But so strong, hopefully we'll have acquisitions if they're a right fit for the company, that we'll have those opportunities as well. But the sky's the limit, Barry. Funny enough, so I'm the introvert in the family, which most people would be surprised to hear. My brother is the extrovert, and nobody's surprised to hear that. But I've got the bigger appetite for growth. I'm ready to conquer the world. And that's another thing where Bryan and I balance each other out. He's like, all right, let's go a little slower. And then mom and dad, they're retired. I'm like, why do we need to grow like this? And because, why do you climb the mountain? Because it's there. Anyway, sky's the limit, Barry.
Yeah. Like you just said, some people are built for just being a little bit smaller and really making what they have profitable. And some people are built like you, where they just want to take over the world. Is that taught? Is it caught? What drives that for you?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm like that. I've always been like that. And I mentioned band earlier, but I was very driven with practicing and performing and getting selected for top performance groups and solo and ensemble and what have you. So I've always been that way. Mm-hmm. But now that it's evolved into our business, and when you helped us establish our passion statement, we really focused on building a great company while enabling personal success. Because my brother will ask me, why do you do this, Jeremy? And why do you like working? And I love building a great company. I love seeing
Mm.
us succeed. I love seeing us get this accomplishment or that accomplishment and growing in the rankings in the industry. And I love seeing the personal success. Our longest term employees, 38 years with us. We've got so many people that started knowing nothing at the ground level and are key managers in our company. We've got salespeople that had never been a salesperson that have just really succeeded with in their sales skills and sales career and financially. Our company, I jokingly say, is riddled with success stories. And it's not because Bryan or I made them successful or mom and dad did, but we provided the playing field, so to speak. We provided a good company to work for, good tools to work with. We helped lead them to resources where they could learn, but they had to have the drive and the work ethic. And our job was to find the right people that could succeed in the environment that we helped establish. We haven't been perfect along the way. I haven't been the perfect boss.
Yeah.
I've had my own issues and stuff, but one of our core values is to seek and grow, right? And so we're always looking to improve. We're always looking to learn. And my brother is a consummate student inside and out and that's why he's so freaking good in sales.
Mm-hmm.
But when we say we're all about building a great company while enabling personal success, we truly believe it. And I'm that way. I have no idea. I'm just wired
Yeah.
that way. I
I
love it.
love that answer because I'm the type of person who will start something and then hand it off to somebody like you. I do not like the long-term grind of building something into perpetuity. It's why I love being an implementer because it's like every client I get to start over in
Yeah.
my beginner entrepreneurial journey with the help of great people. And that's my sweet spot. So I think that you guys have a greater internal training culture
Uh-huh.
than almost anybody I've ever worked with. You said that Bryan was a consummate student. I know that you are too. How did you grow into this company that did all this internal training so you wouldn't have to worry about hiring external people who already knew how to do it so much as you could build what you wanted?
Gosh. So it hasn't been a perfect, smooth process getting here. We have stumbled many times, and those are sometimes the best times to really learn what doesn't work and learn what you need to do to improve. Sometimes it's involved stepping our toe on delivering service properly to a customer, and that's been a great opportunity to really show them who we are, that we're going to step up and fix things and really excel. That's another one of our core values: do what's right and for the customer and others. Over the years, it's just sheer force of nature is how we've learned to do what we do. And we talk about mentors. Some of our best mentors have been through a group called the Achievers, the Sonatrol Achievers, the franchise system that we have been involved with on the Sonatrol side of our business. And we've been a part of that group for 20 some odd years. And we would go to these meetings and we're sitting there with people like my dad and other senior operators of the business. And you share your financials, you share your sales numbers, you just open the books.
Mm-hmm.
And so you share your best practices or you share your worst practices. And we all critique each other in a constructive manner, present different ideas. And so that's been where we've really gained a lot of ideas and learned a lot of good things.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, if you know that you wanted to replicate, make it scalable, you've got to teach other people in the company. So early on, we knew better than to you don't bring me a problem without bringing an answer as well,
That's
or
good.
a possible solution, doing stuff like that. We still bits and pieces from different books and from hearing different people before we had the blessings of the EOS system.
Yeah.
But that's what we've been. We've definitely would invest in education. Probably a lot of this comes from the sales culture. So I mentioned that dad was in sales, mom was in sales. I joke about it. Dad was really good in sales. Mom was good in sales. Then I was in sales and I was better than them. And then comes along my brother and he was better in sales than all three of us combined. And he's just so good.
Yeah.
But we were always going to sales trainings and had sales mentors. And you just don't show up in sales if you want to be
That's right.
really good. You got
So
to
one,
practice.
yeah, I want everybody to understand what he just said. I asked him, how did you get this training culture? And basically he said this: Jim Rohn said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And he got himself around all these people who he became the average of, starting with his parents, going into the groups. And then the other thing that I want you to hear is, if you rewind this episode, he has not only talked about his core values, but he's mentioned 2 of 3 of them. And you'll hear him making decisions and going back to the specific core value that he was exhibiting and his company was exhibiting. So I love that answer, Jeremy. So here's the thing. You're giving advice to 3 different people. One is in the startup stage, one is in the growth stage, and one is in the scaling stage. What is first advice to people in their startup stage? What do they need to do?
Yeah, I don't really officially think that I'm a startup person, but we definitely have been involved in startups. I mentioned earlier, my brother started the Jacksonville branch from scratch.
Yeah.
And he's the one that can speak the most to that. But I was right there with him, just up in Kentucky, providing support. But I would tell you from that perspective, and also just when I started getting involved in the business, when we were a whole lot smaller, back when Dad and Mom were running it, is I spent a lot of time studying the companies we aspired to be like. And I remember I mentioned that SDM 100 list. We were nowhere close to being on it, but I read that list. I studied it. I would look at websites, were still new back then, but I would read articles about those companies because that's where I wanted to be. So if somebody's in an industry that they've got stuff like that, they've got peer groups that they want to be like, then they can study those things and really learn. And of course, I think it's inspiring and educational to learn.
Yeah. So the startup is to research. Success leaves clues, right? So you're going back and you're beginning with the end in mind. That's Stephen Covey, one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Yep. You're studying successful people and you're beginning with that in mind and working toward that. And what I also heard, and here's the thing is people are listening saying he started a startup in Jacksonville. They already had a successful company. But the first thing that came into my mind was the fact that you're more likely to make it as a startup if you start with $1,000 than if you start with $1 million. Now, I don't know how much you had, but if you start with $1 million and you start something new, you can throw money at it. And when you throw money at it, you can go broke really fast. When you start with $1,000, you don't just throw money at problems. It's more like sweat equity. So it's not the lack of resources, but the lack of resourcefulness that gets most people. So what I'm sure you didn't do, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was say, oh, we have this big pot of money over here with our original company, Bryan. So have at it in your new location. What happened?
All of the above, Barry. We were fortunate to have the mothership to support it down here. But it was my brother. I happened to be sitting in Jacksonville while we're talking today. But my brother, he was down here by himself, not one customer. Actually, he had 2 people in the company volunteer to go down with him. So it was 2 salespeople and a technician, counting my brother.
Yeah.
And they were out there trying to make it happen. And he was spending the money of the company, and there was no clear sign of success. In fact, the cards were stacked against us, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have to succeed because he could always come back.
Yeah.
But his mentality is he was not going to give up, and he worked his butt off. He did everything he could. He was out there knocking on doors, meeting people, acting busy to get busy is what Tom Hopkins says.
Yeah. I love Tom.
But then I also go back to when my parents started the company. They bought the company in 1984. They had no idea. They were acquiring a company, right? They had no idea how to do an acquisition like we do today. And thank God, Barry, because they didn't have enough money to get started. And
you're right.
They had a payroll due within a week after acquiring our company back then. You remember 331 customers. And luckily, there's this concept in our industry called deferred revenue. I know it's not exclusive to Lexington,
right?
The security. But because of that deferred revenue, which they had no idea they were going to get, they were able to make payroll. So sometimes my dad would say, and I've heard other entrepreneurs say when they were starting up, it was good that they didn't know some things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because you'd never started if you thought you knew. I thought we were going to open up an automotive repair shop. We were just going to get rich. It didn't work out that way. So thank God we had some luck and we call it sweat equity. You just got to put some sweat equity in it. And what do we know today would help back then, but it may hurt too, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
I did love that. And I never thought about it until you just said it. Like it could have been easy just to give up and come back and you'd be okay. The pure doggedness to stay in the fight and just say, this is what I'll do. And you're acting like you don't have that option. So you make it work. And I love that. So how
Yeah.
about now they're in the growth stage? You've got some revenue, your operations is pretty good. What advice in the growth stage?
So you got to have it, right? You got to have that growth. And I think you always need growth. We don't want to be static. And my parents have always mentioned we could level out sales and not really worry about growing and we could make a good living, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just not how I'm wired, nor anybody in our company. We want to be growing at all times. And I've seen other companies where they get up to our stage and the owner starts stepping back and he just lets people just keep the business going and they're happy with it. But when Bryan and I turn it over to whoever our next generational leaders are, we want them to be like us. We want them to be growing the company. If they're not growing, they're not succeeding. But I think it's important to not, as you grow, sometimes I think we in the past have been too focused on growth to the extent that operations will take care of itself or customer attrition will not be that bad. Customer satisfaction will take care of itself. So I think as we have learned, as we've grown, and as we've had more resources to work with, we have put more emphasis on our operations. I think we've always been good operators, but as you grow, what worked yesterday does not work tomorrow necessarily. So we are very well aware of that as we've gone through our different stages. So I think you need to pay attention to your operations. It can't be just about sales. And if you're good with your operations, you're going to develop a good reputation, and that's going to help you in your sales.
Yeah.
And then also, I would say resist the temptation to get distracted. And we can talk about this from experience. We're successful in security in everything that we do. So let's add this little twist and let's go into this market. And then, you know what? Just because you're in good one segment of the industry doesn't mean you're going to be good in the other segment. And in fact, it can be a distraction and you got cleanup and you get some scrapes and bruises and stuff like that. And where you would have been better off staying focused on what you do best, going after the customer that you resonate with, that resonates with you. So be careful about your distraction, the temptations to go after other stuff. And it is a hard thing to do. We're dealing with one right now, anyway.
Yeah. So it's that whole thing about the hedgehog concept, Jim Collins, good to great. You're more likely to die of indigestion of too many things than starvation, not enough things. And those three questions are so key. What drives your economic engine? What can you be the best in the world at? And what are you deeply passionate about? Keep the main thing. I love all this. I don't know if you guys are keeping up, but you're getting a master class in how to start, scale, and grow your business. I've spent a lot of time with you, and I've learned so much today that I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'd never thought about that. And so I could probably do 50 episodes with you. Now you're scaling your business. And so what's the advice on scaling this thing? How do you do it? What are best practices? Tell us about it.
So I mentioned earlier that what works today is not going to work tomorrow. And typically I've seen that hit in year increments, but I've seen it hit in 6-month increments. But if you're growing your business, when we first had a big sea change operationally before you, Barry, back in 2016, and we were just one office, probably around 70, 80 people, maybe 60, 70. I'm not good with remembering my numbers, but we were what I now know to call hitting a ceiling. And we had this industry consultant come in and give us some new procedures on how to operate, some new ideas, which we called the standard. And that worked until it didn't. I think I've heard you say that. And so it worked great for several years. My brother had moved back to Lexington by this time a couple of years ago. The pandemic had happened. We'd expanded into 5 locations total now, just probably a little over 100 employees at the time. Today we're a little over 120. And what worked back in 2016 was not working in 2021. Was that it?
Yeah.
And my brother had been given this book called Traction and had read it, or actually he hadn't read it yet. A friend of him told him to read it. So he got me to read it and he read it. We read it at the same time. We got our senior leadership to read it. And we're like, we got to do this. And so I don't want to be a commercial for EOS necessarily, but
Sure.
I think it's just important to have some type of entrepreneurial operating system and
That's right.
in place and live it and breathe it and get it implemented today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were just doing things by sheer force and sheer work ethic, but there's a lot of frustration that comes with that, a lot of heartache, a lot of anxiety. But for us, what was just really important, I've been doing this 28 years as of this February, last February, but we finally got smart and embraced EOS. So a true entrepreneurial operating system. We bought into it hook, line, and sinker. I remember we decided, hey, let's get an implementer because we knew Bryan and I were smart enough by then to know that we would not be able to get this thing done by ourselves. We would read it, get some good ideas, and then we'd be back to our old ways. So we called the OS. You and I ended up on a phone call. We had you come in and you had us at hello. And as they say,
That's good.
but after your 90-minute, we signed you up or you signed us up. And so I would say to scale, make sure you've got some type of system. And then if you don't, do it today. There's never going to be a good time to implement it. I've referred a couple different companies to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You could think that, hey, I'll do it in a couple of years when I've got more people, whatever. No, the best time to do it is today. There's never going to be a good time. It's better to get it done today.
The funny thing about your referrals is they're like, all right, we want to get started. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's slow down. I know Jeremy said all these things, but we need to slow down, make sure we're a good fit for each other. And they're like, no, let's get started. I'm like, no, slow down.
I know maybe I should call you up and say, hey,
oh, no. Do exactly what you're doing. Okay. I'm a trained salesperson and people come to me advice. And I told Jeremy this the other day. I'm like, Jeremy, you are the best salesperson in our company. I relent. No, just keep doing it. Right? It's a good problem to have. I can slow them down. You keep them sped up. So yeah, Jeremy met me, felt sorry for me, and said we're gonna help this guy out and have him be our implementer. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Look, is there any other advice that I did not cover today that you would want to tell someone?
I don't have anything specific. I just know that make sure it's something you're passionate about and work it hard, have good work ethic. And what's worked for us is surrounding ourselves with good people. It is my name that's on the company, or my family's name that's on the name of the company. We get a lot of the credit, most of the credit, but it is not because of us. It is because of a solid team that we have surrounded ourselves with over the years and will continue to do. And then the leaders after us I believe, we will help mentor them to do the same thing that we're doing and our leaders are doing.
I love that. Look, if you're listening to this episode like 3 times at a minimum, because he gave so much information, so many value bombs here that you're not going to get it in one listen. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Jeremy, where can people find you?
So if they want to learn more about Bates Security, just Google Bates Security or go to batesecurity.com and you can find us. We are the largest family-owned and private security company in Kentucky and in Florida collectively. And then we service surrounding areas as well.
Yeah, I am a client, and I can tell you it's a world-class experience. It gives me a lot of safety and security. And one of the unintended things that I didn't realize I was going to get, which makes it unintended, is that my kids are older, 18 and 14, and they stay here sometimes themselves. And I get to trust but verify when they're home. It's so good. So I appreciate you. Thanks for being on. I could interview for another 10 hours. I'm going to have you back. I'm going to have your brother back. And so I'm going to have y'all together at one point.
Okay,
so
sure.
Wait for that. You have a great day, Jeremy. Thank you so much.